Ben, you lived in China as well for a few years, if I understand correctly. How do you compare China based on your own experience with how the country is portrayed by what you see on UK television or new media? And what do you think will be the consequence if a British media landscape is without the voice coming from China, the official voice, of course, coming from China?
Well, I think there's enormous ignorance about what life is like in China. There's huge ignorance about Chinese politics, about Chinese public opinion, about how Chinese people live. So, you know, that's dangerous because people make mistakes, as John has said, if they don't understand what's happening in other countries. So people don't know about the speed of Chinese development. They don't know about the huge difference lifting people out of poverty has made in China. And they don't know how developed China is either. I mean, I think one interesting example of that in recent times is the coronavirus crisis. There was an assumption, you know, this time last year and in the winter of 2019, that what could happen in China couldn't happen here. China was a poor country, a third world country, and that led to a very arrogant position on the behalf of the British government and I think the US government, where they ignored warnings from China about the virus. They didn't prepare, and then when it did hit our countries, tens of thousands of people died as a consequence of that laziness. And that was because people thought of China in a completely different way. They didn't understand the reality that in some ways China's actually more advanced than the West. I mean, its railway system is certainly much in advance of the British railway system. So that's one aspect. I think that there's a view that's sometimes put out that Chinese people are unfree, that they're brainwashed. That's completely not my impression, having lived there for several years. Chinese people are very well informed, very engaged politically. You know, they certainly, my Chinese friends have many strong opinions they never hesitated to share with me. So I think that there is a huge ignorance about it all, and that's big, real consequences to that.
Yeah. Finally, John, does it suffice, on the other hand, or some people might argue, to have reports of China on China by correspondents of UK media? I mean, you have China correspondents of several British media here in China, and they seem to be doing an active job talking about China.
That's funny. In fact, there's been several excellent exposés of the way that they distort stories of finding so-called prisons which actually turned out to be factories, and security guards with the normal security guards that you would have at factories and things like that. They're presenting an extremely biased view. It's, again, it's the situation with the BBC, which is the biggest of these. The agreement was that every single employee of the BBC, as it said, except for the cleaners, would be vetted by military intelligence. Do you believe, if that's the way that your staff is selected, that you're going to get an unbiased view? You're going to get a view which represents the views of the British state. Okay, that's fine. I treat the BBC as a state broadcasting organisation, but in that case, one also wants to hear what the view is from China. So, you know, Cgtn's not pretending that it's not an official broadcasting organisation of China. People are quite sensible enough to listen to what its views. They'll take that into account. But it's vital that you hear the presentation of views as the situation is seen by China. You will then take into account the information that China gives. You'll take into account the information which is given by CNN or the BBC or the New York Times or whatever it is that you're reading, and do that. But if you cut one of these out, particularly if it's China's view, you are going to take dangerously wrong information. And then, as I said, you have very, very dangerous decisions taken on the basis of this. So I think that this has to be opposed on Cgtn, not merely on grounds of free speech, etc., but also because it's actively dangerous in the context of the new Cold War.